You say you've got a mild turbocharged street car and you'd like it to be quiet, and you're thinking to yourself, should I put a muffler on it or will I pay the price in power? Well, tell you what, we are gonna find out so you don't have to, because let me tell you, it's grisly. Just when you thought you had seen every exhaust test on Engine Masters, I came up with a new one. And I'll tell you this, it's gonna be the most interesting and critical one ever. Because what we're gonna do is run different exhaust systems off the backside of a turbocharger. And as a result, it's not just about the exhaust flow, it's about what it does to boost and the turbocharger and the wastegate. This is gonna be fascinating. So here's the scenario. Let's say that you're a guy who's got a typical street strip car and you got a turbocharger on it and you're not going for 1,000 horsepower. You're not a guy who just wants to take this dump tube and run it straight out the side of your fender. No matter how hip that is these days, you actually want it to be a little bit quiet. So you're thinking about putting a muffler on it. Well, that's the scenario we're sort of gonna test here. What we're gonna do is start with this turbocharger with a 4-inch open pipe, kind of like you would do if you were just dumping it out the side of the fender. Next, we're gonna put 3-inch exhaust on it, and we're gonna run it open all the way out to the back bumper of your car. We're gonna try it with a 3-inch Flowmaster muffler, a chambered unit. We're also gonna test it with a turbo muffler. That's what it's for, right? It says turbo right in the name. We're also gonna run what I've always said is the best muffler for power, which is, as you know, the one that you can see through. And this one is a Flow Monster 3-incher, not a Flow Master, but a Flow Monster. So that's what's gonna happen with the 3-inch exhaust. And after we analyze all of that, we're gonna go ahead and step it up to a 4-inch exhaust just like this, but all the way out to the back bumper and open. And after we run it open, we will try it with another Flowmaster chambered muffler, and then with a Flowmaster Pro Series muffler. So through all of that, you're gonna see us analyzing not only the horsepower, but what it does to turbocharger boost. We're also going to be looking at back pressure, which is the pressure in the exhaust system between the port or the exhaust manifold and the turbocharger itself, because we're gonna look at how that interacts with boost and how it all ties in with power. This gets really fascinating. So this is really applicable to a lot of different engines, but let me tell you about the actual one we're using in the test. It's your typical 5.3 liter LS engine. It's actually an LM7 iron block truck motor. We've upgraded it in past episodes. It's got a stock crank, but Wiseco forged pistons and boost line rods in it. The camshaft is a Brian Tooley Racing Stage 2. The cylinder heads are from TFS, and they're a 205cc CNC ported cylinder head. This time, we've got a carburetor on it, which is a Demon 650 CFM blow-through unit. The timing is being controlled by MSD. They've got a special controller for these things, and we're running 23 degrees of total ignition advance in every test that you're seeing here. The exhaust manifolds, I think, are pretty cool. These are from Hooker Headers, and they are a cast iron manifold kit that you can buy specifically for a single turbo application. Now, these are really going to be for what I'm seeing as most applicable for this test, which is a mild street deal, less than 700 horsepower or something like that. The cast iron means that they're going to be quieter, they're not going to crack, you can hang the turbo off of them. It's just a much better deal than having to fabricate something for an engine at this lower level. What's counterintuitive to that is the turbocharger that we're running, which honestly is overkill for what we're doing here. In past episodes, I have mistakenly referred to it as a BorgWarner S485. It's actually an S480 with an 80mm billet wheel on it and an AR ratio of 1.25 to 1. So that thing is 1,200 horsepower capable, and we're tuning it down here to about a 600 horsepower level. In order to manage that with the wastegate, we've got a 45mm wastegate on it, which is just large enough that we shouldn't see any boost creep in what we're doing in this show, because we're going to be running 10 to 11 PSI at max and making just over 600 horsepower. So that's the combination with the engine. Now I'm going to send you to Steve Brule in the dyno cell, who's going to show you some of the different data that we're going to pick up so that we can look at back pressure and things like that. And once he walks you through the tech on the dyno, we'll sit down and have a chat about our favorite new turbo buddy, and then we're going to put it on the pump with a 4-inch open pipe and show you the biggest power it's going to make throughout the episode before we start killing it off. And at the end of the show, I promise you, we will bring it back to its former glory.
So a couple of the sensors that we felt were important to look at since we're testing the exhaust system is this sensor right here measures the back pressure of the exhaust system. We also have boost pressure right here measured at the manifold in PSI. And one of the other things that we added in case we wanted to change the boost or needed to change the boost, we're not even sure of that yet, but we just wanted the ability to, is this manual boost controller. And all it really does is lie to the wastegate. So we've got a little bit of adjustment.
Guys, there's a lot of tests that we've done in the past that I think you and I have retreaded from old magazine stories that you've seen a dozen times. And this is one that not only have we never done before, but I've never actually seen before. I'm sure it's done. I mean, people have tested exhaust on turbos forever, but it's not something that I have consumed. So this is going to be 100% learning experience. The thing that takes this out of what you normally see is every time somebody's got a turbo LS, they're trying to throw the world at it and make 1,000 and be a superhero. And I'm trying to package this towards somebody who actually wants to drive the car around every day. I'm thinking it's more, you know, practical information instead of like, you know, yeehaw, hold my beer kind of information. So I haven't seen what you've done with the baseline on this thing, so let's fire it up and look at numbers.
I can go do that. It's good.
Here's our baseline power. We made 617.2 horsepower and 575.5 pound-feet of torque. And because we're not using electronic boost control, we've got a rising boost curve and therefore a fairly, what we would call normal looking curve. In other words, it's not just starting up here and making dead flat power the whole time. So let's have a look at that boost curve. You'll see that it's gonna start low and move up high. Looks like it starts at about 5.2 and it's going to end at 10.9. Everyone's like, well, how much boost does it take to make that? 600 horsepower is basically 11 pounds on this thing. Now, how does that boost curve compare to the back pressure curve of pressure inside those manifolds? So this is going to be that thing that we had Steve show you, the sensor that is in between the exhaust port and the turbo. So it's back pressure in the exhaust system before it reaches the turbine.
Upper scale is the back pressure, and from the research I've done, a 2-to-1 ratio is kind of normal.
So that's actually quite a lot of back pressure for what we're doing here. And
especially at this step.
Exactly. I consider that pretty bad.
Now, is that because those exhaust manifolds are kind of restrictive and the way the crossovers?
The manifold is not that great. This is kind of typical with an exhaust manifold. It would certainly be better with a header.
Exactly.
And what about the crossover configuration?
It's the whole design of kind of the way it dumps and crosses over in the short manifold and just not being a good exhaust design. I mean, the same thing you run into in an NA engine. It's just not a great manifold.
Right.
Yeah, especially when you're cramming 600 horsepower through it.
Exactly.
I guess that is what it is. So we got to move to our next step of choking this thing with some exhaust. So my thought is to start with the worst possible configuration and then improve it. In other words, start with 3-inch exhaust and go to 4. So I guess what we'll do right now is put on our 3-inch pipe with a Flowmaster muffler. And then I've also got a straight through 3-inch after that. So we're gonna go Flowmaster, Turbo Muffler, and then Flow Monster, and come back here and look at the data.
Next up, can you hear it? It's the Summit Turbo Muffler.
Where did the horsepower go?
That is gruesome.
Yeah.
Wow, Dulcich, way to put in a day's work, bro.
And the last of the 3-inch mufflers is the straight through Flow Monster. This will be the very last one with the 3-inch exhaust, and now we've got no muffler on it at all. That was horrible.
You really know how to hurt a guy.
Yeah, or in a motor. That was terrible. We've opened up all of the curves for all of the stuff we did with the 3-inch exhaust system, and it's gruesome.
Oh, no.
It's really bad. I'm gonna start with the best and move my way to the worst. So the best, strangely enough, was with the Flow Monster, which was that straight through stainless steel little round muffler. It made 579.7 horsepower and 542 pound-feet of torque. Then we removed that muffler and ran open completely and made 572.6 horsepower and 536.4 pound-feet of torque. Next was the Flowmaster chambered muffler. That made 547.6 horsepower and 519 pound-feet of torque, and absolutely ghastly. It was the turbo muffler from Summit, which made 461.8 horsepower and 449.3 pound-feet of torque. Just look at that. This green one is ironically the turbo muffler. It has it right in the name. But clearly, don't be shopping for your turbo muffler by buying a turbo muffler. The muffler restriction kills the boost.
It does.
Yeah.
Every time we tested and it got quieter, the boost got worse.
Yeah.
And you know, the two kind of went together and the power went down. I mean, it was just hideous how we were just knocking. The last change was 150 horsepower.
150 horsepower down.
That change in mufflers would never act that way NA.
And that is the point of the episode, actually, because the reason we're seeing these power losses is not just on outlet restriction, it's because of what it does to boost. So let's look at those curves all together.
Oh. Gee, that looks a lot like the horsepower curve.
A lot like the horsepower curve.
Yeah.
The worst down here is with the turbo muffler. And then moving up in blue is the Flowmaster, in red is an open pipe, and in black is the Flow Monster muffler. I still can't quite put my finger on why that Flow Monster would make more power than an open pipe.
There are some other things that happen when you get the turbo a little hotter. It will spool differently. It can make a little more boost. You know, it's possible that I drove it a slight bit different and didn't preload it long enough to build the heat to have it make a little more boost. There's some driving going on there too. That's why you see guys so adamant about staging the same way and doing that sort of thing at the races.
What is the difference on the green line? Like, what's the peak boost? 5.8 pounds, and up there it's 9.3. So that's how much boost was killed just by adding that muffler onto the tail end.
Conversely, and I suppose if you want to look at this, but the back pressure went up with every one of these as the boost went down.
That's the next thing I wanted to look at. The change in back pressure isn't as radical as I thought that it would be, but as compared with the resulting boost, the ratio is going to get much more horrible. For example, what is the back pressure for the turbo muffler? 18.8, but the boost from that one was only 5.8, so 3.24 to 1, and that's what makes that horrible, is the back pressure ratio's hideous.
Well, the boost is down, but I mean, with that sort of back pressure, I have to imagine that it's causing other issues like heat and other problems, you know, potentially. I have seen too much back pressure cause issues with exhaust valves, like they keep burning exhaust valves and tearing motors up, and it causes detonation issues because of combustion chamber temperature. There's a lot of other bad things that go on there with that ratio being, or the exhaust pressure side being way too high.
This whole segment has been an eye-opener for me. I mean, flat out, don't put exhaust restriction on your turbo and it'll be a happier day. So I think this has been crippling. Next up, I want to move to a 4-inch exhaust system and see what we can do with a Flowmaster on that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm thinking maybe the larger pipe and everything makes it not as bad a scenario as what we've got going on here.
Yeah.
All right, next up, 4-inch pipe with a muffler. The 4-inch pipe we just added is longer than the very first one that we ran, so we're gonna retest it open before we install a Flowmaster chambered muffler and then a Flowmaster straight through muffler. We ran it open, now we've got the 4-inch Flowmaster chambered muffler on there. Look at the paint smoking off the muffler. And our last muffler, the Flowmaster Pro Series with the cone of silence. That's the twin cones of silence inside. Steve just graphed all of the 4-inch pipes, and finally we're getting somewhere. Check this out. The red line here is the Flowmaster chambered muffler, but the interesting part is that the black line is the longer pipe open, and the blue line is the Flowmaster Pro Series, which is that cone of silence type muffler, and it's essentially unchanged. It's not a straight through design. You can see through it, but there's a lot of mesh and things going on. It has a very deep tone to it, and basically didn't hurt power except for a little bit at the bottom and a little bit at the top. And that's gonna follow the boost curve for whatever reason. That's gonna change a little bit.
Every time we've looked at this, when the back pressure goes up, the boost goes down. The higher the back pressure, the lower the boost. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's 3-inch or 4-inch or what muffler's on it. Those two things are consistent. It's also consistent with the power. I mean, the more restriction, the less the power. It lowers the boost and raises the back pressure. So.
Well, I also wrote down the back pressure numbers on all of these. So what's interesting about it is that the open and also the Flowmaster chambered had 18.6 back pressure. Strangely enough, the Pro Series muffler, 18.4. Down just a little bit, testing anomaly, you know.
Yeah, we're talking 0.2 of a PSI. I mean, that's kind of.
But also the boost was not affected nearly as much as what we saw with the 3-inch.
No.
So with the open 4-inch pipe, we had 10.8 PSI of boost. With the chambered muffler, 10.1, and with the Pro Series, 10.6.
Yeah.
So our back pressure ratio, let's see, in the worst case scenario is probably open. Let's see, 18.6 divided by 10.8. It's 1.72.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's...
Well, relatively speaking with these
not bad
manifolds.
versus everything else that we've seen in this show, and that's why it's making the best power. So pretty cool. Can we compare the 4-inch muffler to what we did earlier today with the much shorter 4-inch open pipe? Because I'm curious how that pipe length itself affects what's going on with the turbo. Okay, so the black line is open long pipe and blue is open short pipe?
Yes.
So it preferred a longer length of pipe actually for power.
Well, and again, I mean, we're looking, it changes the curve slightly, so we're looking at as close as it can be adjusted without an electronic boost controller.
Right.
With the manual boost control, I mean, we're still maybe looking at a 1/10 or so difference here. I'm kind of inclined to lean towards it's really not making much difference at all between the pipe length. I mean, that's a massive diameter pipe. And so I don't think we're going to see the effects of that as much as we might on some smaller stuff.
Nevertheless, we ended up making our best power overall from this whole day with the longest length of 4-inch pipe with no muffler on it, and that was 623 horsepower and 579.9 pound-feet of torque. Now with the Flowmaster chambered muffler, we made 604 horsepower and 563 pound-feet, and with the Pro Series Flowmaster, it was 617.7 horsepower and 580 pound-feet of torque. And the boost for all of those ranged from 10.1 for the chambered muffler to a high of 10.8 for the open pipe.
I really like this thing.
The big thing to me, really, that this test showed was the spread from a really bad 3-inch muffler in terms of a turbo setup to the best was way broader than what we saw with this. With the 4-inch pipe, it's more forgiving because you're way bigger already.
The other thing I think is that when we did that step down off the back of the turbo from 4 to 3, we created a massive back pressure ratio problem. And I think the worse the back pressure ratio gets, the more damaging everything else that you do. It's just, it starts to fall off the cliff and pick up steam. And that's why the mufflers were a much more radical difference.
And that taper was a nice taper. It wasn't ugly or anything. No, it does. That's what my point is. It doesn't matter. I mean, it wasn't like it was some hack job. I mean, it was a nice cone-shaped taper. So it's just gets down to be that small and causes a lot of restriction.
Yep. So I guess that brings us to the point of being able to make clear conclusions, which we've sort of said it all along, but let's just put a point on it. First of all, I think if I was running a turbo, I would attempt with all of my life to never run a smaller diameter exhaust pipe than the outlet of the turbo itself.
Right.
And if I have to restrict it, don't do it just boom, right there in the first 6 inches after the turbocharger. That was a mess. But that just adds up to the bigger conclusion is don't restrict the outlet of your turbo. Just don't. I thought that with this only making 600 horsepower, that it would be an application where a guy doesn't want to just put a dump out his fender.
Yeah.
But in truth, you would be better off if you did. If you're gonna run a full exhaust system all the way out to the back of your car to try and quiet it down for the street, don't run a muffler. Just run as big a pipe as you can fit all the way to the back of the car.
I agree. Back pressure is poison on the turbo setup.
Death.
The conclusion for me is I will confess that I've made some derogatory statements about forced induction and that sort of thing, but I'm going to take it all back. This thing is just awesome. I mean, the kind of power it makes for this many cubic inches, I'm a believer. I see why so many guys love this technology. It's just awesome.
You and I were looking off camera earlier. It idles at 18 inches of vacuum.
You can have a 2200 RPM converter in your air conditioner on it, goes into gear, smokes the tires for a quarter of a mile and makes 650 horsepower. You know, it's just, I see why.
And we've been running it on Sunoco 116 just because we don't want to leave parts on the floor, but it's a pump gas combo.
I think it could be at this boost level. I think we're right there probably as far as pump gas, but that latent vaporization of blowing through the carburetor helps with the intercooler stuff. But realistically, if you go this far, why not put an intercooler as well?
Plumbing nightmare. That's the big thing that keeps me away from a lot of it. And it's why I'm glad to know that an exhaust system is kind of bad. It gives me more reason to simplify the exhaust and just dump it out the side.
You know, no intercooler, no mufflers, no real exhaust. I mean, how much simpler does it get? You can bolt one of these things on in about 3 hours.
You can. So I think I just came up with what my final conclusion is of the day.
Let's hear it, Freiburger.
The turbo is the muffler. Get over it. End your exhaust system with a turbo and have a nice day.
I agree.
And you know what? Probably we need to find out someday whether those cast iron manifolds really are giving a lot of power up versus a header.
We've got to do a comparison of manifold versus header.
What does that sound like?
Another episode of
Engine Masters.
The city glows with neon lights. We chase the stars through endless nights. A rhythm sparks beneath our feet. Electric hearts, the world's our beat. The baseline